What if three little words, I love you, weren't only a confession of the heart, but also a calculated move? What if the phrase we think of as pure and romantic could also be used as a strategy of control, a way of bending another person's world around our own? Machiavelli, the man who has been called the father of political realism, would not hesitate for a second. He would tell you that in power, nothing is ever innocent. And in relationships, as in politics, appearances and words can sometimes matter more than truth. Before moving on to the video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Enjoy. Imagine a ruler standing before his people. His voice does not simply echo across the square, it carves itself into the hearts of the crowd like an artist chiseling stone. He speaks of justice, of mercy, of loyalty words gilded with gold, dressed in velvet. The people listen, eyes wide, spirits lifted. They believe him because they want to believe him. Hope is easier to embrace than suspicion. And yet, behind that carefully measured tone, behind every pause and every flourish, lies a truth far colder. His words are not an open window into his soul, but a locked door designed to conceal it. Every promise is calculated, every vow is sharpened, not to give, but to take. His sentences are not offerings, they are weapons disguised as blessings. Now, take this same principle and remove the throne, the palace, the crown, place it in the most intimate arena of all, a relationship. Imagine a lover whispering, I love you, to the unguarded ear. Those words sound pure, spontaneous, like a flame that suddenly leaps into the dark. But what if they are not born of passion at all? What if they are chosen with precision, like arrows selected from a quiver? The phrase is not spoken because the heart cannot contain itself, but because the mind seeks control. It is not a confession, it is a strategy. I love you becomes less an overflow of feeling, and more a lever, a rope, a chain. It reassures, it binds, it disarms. It pulls the other person closer, while at the same time keeping them just a little bit unsteady. Machiavelli wrote his counsel for princes navigating treacherous courts, but his insights spill like ink far beyond palaces and thrones. Politics is not confined to marble halls. It seeps into kitchens, into bedrooms, into whispered moments in the dark. Human beings wield influence everywhere, and in the quiet space between two lovers. Power games can be just as ruthless as those on a battlefield. A glance can be a command. A silence can be a punishment, and words, especially words soaked in sweetness, can be sharper than any sword. Few phrases in human history have carried as much weight, as much danger, or as much seductive power as those three little words, I love you. But here lies the haunting paradox. When I love you is deployed as a tactic, is it still love at all? Or does it become something altogether different, something colder, more deliberate, perhaps even more dangerous? If love is meant to be a surrender, then turning it into a weapon twists it into its opposite. And yet, one could argue that this calculated love might be more enduring, more effective, more useful than the fleeting fires of genuine passion. After all, true emotions rise and fall like the tide. They blaze and then they burn out. But strategy can last a lifetime. This tension raises unsettling questions. How many declarations of love throughout history were genuine outpourings of the heart? And how many were subtle maneuvers of influence? How many marriages were sealed not in the warmth of sincerity, but in the cold logic of advantage? And closer to home, how many times have we believed someone's I love you without ever considering that it might have been chosen not for truth, but for effect? The genius in, the danger of Machiavelli's insight is that it forces us to ask, is authenticity even necessary? Or is the appearance of love enough to achieve its purpose? A ruler who seems merciful gains the loyalty of his people. Even if his heart is iron, a lover who says the right words at the right time wins devotion, even if their heart is silent. Perhaps the substance matters less than the surface. Perhaps what we want is not truth, but the illusion of truth. And so, the simple phrase that should unite to hearts instead reveals a battlefield of intentions. One partner may give it freely, while the other may wield it like a blade. One may hear it as poetry, while the other speaks it as policy. And in that fragile space between truth and strategy, Lovey the Flourishasaur died. Machiavelli never dressed up his truths. He stripped them bare, leaving only the raw edge of reality. He told rulers that it was better to seem good than to actually be good, because people judge by appearances, not by essence. Human eyes are shallow instruments. They cling to surfaces and rarely pierce the depths. And in the theater of power, what is seen carries more weight than what is true. In love, the same pattern emerges with startling clarity. A person who says "I love you" doesn't always need to feel it for it to work. They only need to say it in such a way that the other person believes it. And belief, once planted in the soil of the heart, grows into something even stronger than reality itself. Because we want to believe, because our hearts are hungry for reassurance, because we are terrified of losing the fragile illusion of being chosen, being cherished, being irreplaceable. Think about the moment someone utters those words for the first time. The air shifts. The room seems to thicken with a new weight. Time slows down, and suddenly the other person feels the pull of expectation. There is a silent demand, invisible but undeniable. Respond, return, mirror the words back, or risk breaking the spell. That single moment is not just romantic, it is political. It is a negotiation of power disguised as tenderness. Whoever speaks first gains a certain control, for they have set the terms of the exchange. And once spoken, the words become more than sounds, they become tools. Each repetition of "I love you" functions like currency. Each phrase is a coin, pressed gently but firmly into the palm of the other. Buying trust, buying devotion, buying loyalty. Stack enough of them together, and you create a treasury of promises, a fortress of feeling that looks unshakable. Yet the value of this coin is not in its gold, but in the faith that sustains it. It is paper money backed not by reality, but by imagination. And here lies the danger. The moment doubt enters, the currency begins to collapse. A single crack in trust can trigger an avalanche. The empire of words, built carefully over months or years, can crumble overnight. Just as kingdoms fall not from external attack but from rot within, so too do relationships disintegrate not from silence but from suspicion. Machiavelli would have recognized this instantly. For him, power in politics and power in love are twins, sharing the same DNA. Both are games of perception. Both depend on the fragile belief of the audience, and both collapse the moment illusion is exposed. To be loved is powerful, but to appear endlessly loving, whether sincere or not, is often even more effective. And so, in private life, Machiavelli's lesson is unsettling. Words are not innocent. They are weapons. They are shields. They are coins of exchange. "I love you" can be the purest confession, or it can be the cleverest strategy. It can heal, it can bind, it can inspire, but it can also manipulate, enslave, and control. Love, then, is not just an emotion, it is a stage where the politics of the heart are performed, and where the masks we wear can sometimes matter more than the faces beneath them. Why does this phrase carry such enormous power? Why do three simple words hold the ability to both heal and destroy? Psychology offers us important clues. At the heart of every human being lies a desperate longing, the need to belong, the hunger to be chosen, the desire to matter in someone else's story. When we hear "I love you," it strikes directly at this ancient wound. It is not merely a phrase, it is a validation that seeps into the deepest layers of our identity. It whispers, "You are not invisible. You are not alone. You are seen, known, and valued." But this phrase does more than comfort. It binds like chains made of silk. Its grip is gentle at first, to almost pleasant, almost sweet. Yet with each repetition, those chains grow stronger. The more often we hear it, the more dependent we become on it. Just as the body grows addicted to sugar or opiates, the soul grows addicted to affirmation. Each "I love you" is a dose, and soon we cannot imagine living without the next. It becomes a melody we cannot stop craving, a song we wait to hear, aching, restless, hungry. And once we need it, the person who controls it, who decides when or if it is spoken, suddenly holds immense power over us. Here lies the paradox. The phrase that promises freedom of the heart can become the very tool that enslaves it. For the moment love is declared, its absence becomes unbearable. Silence transforms into torture. A lover who once heard "I love you" every night now trembles when those words go unspoken. The mind fills with anxious questions. Why haven't they said it today? Has their love cooled? Have I done something wrong? Do they still feel the same? This uncertainty is a slow poison dripping into the veins of the relationship. The silence becomes louder than any confession, more piercing than any shout. Machiavelli, the master observer of human weakness, would smile knowingly at this truth. He understood that fear of loss is often stronger than hope of gain. What terrifies us is not only the idea that love might fade, but the haunting thought that it could be withdrawn at any moment. And so the words "I love you" create a paradoxical prison. They offer comfort, yet they also create dependency, vulnerability, and the ever-present shadow of fear. It is here that Machiavelli's shadow lengthens and darkens the room. In the Principe, he argued that deception is not only permissible but often necessary if it protects power or secures advantage. What matters is not truth itself, but the perception of truth. Applied to the battlefield of love, this teaching becomes chilling. A lover might say, "I love you," not because they feel it, but because they know the power it wields. Those words can be used as a mask, a veil to hide betrayal or manipulation. They may be spoken to gain trust, to silence doubt, to disarm suspicion. With 3 words, walls fall, defenses weaken, the guarded heart opens wide, leaving itself vulnerable to wounds it cannot see coming. A well-timed "I love" you can erase days of distance, smooth over inconsistencies, or hide an infidelity too dangerous to reveal. Suspicion melts under the warmth of the phrase. Resistance collapses. The gates of the soul swing open, and the conqueror steps inside. This is why "I love you" is not only a bond, but also a weapon. At its most genuine, it is the purest declaration to human beings, can share a recognition that, despite the chaos of life, they choose one another. But at its most Machiavellian, it is the perfect disguise. Nothing hides treachery more effectively than the illusion of devotion. And once devotion is believed, betrayal becomes almost invisible and it is too late. Thus, "I love you" stands as a double-edged sword. On one side, it is light, warmth, the very thing that gives meaning to our days. On the other side, it is shadow, manipulation, and control. The same phrase that can heal the broken heart can also break it. The same words that bind 2 souls together in trust can just as easily bind one soul in dependence, while the other quietly sharpens the knife of betrayal. And so we are left with a question Machiavelli himself might have asked. Is it better to be truly loved, or merely to convince someone that they are loved? For the cynic, the answer is obvious. For the hopeful, the answer is dangerous. And for those who live in the real world where love and power intertwine, the answer is never simple. But here's the strangest irony. This tactic only works because people desperately want to believe. We are not neutral beings who weigh every word with cold logic. Instead, we are emotional creatures who crave meaning, reassurance, and connection. When someone whispers, "I love you," it does not simply register as sound in our ears, it strikes the very core of our identity, awakening both hope and fear. We want love to be real so badly that we forgive contradictions, excuse inconsistencies, and reinterpret reality just to preserve the comfort of the phrase. Think of how often people cling to words long after actions begin to betray them. A partner goes distant, yet we replay their earlier promises to ourselves like a sacred recording. We ignore the late-night silences, rationalize sudden changes, and defend the very person who is hurting us. Why? Because the belief in love is often more nourishing than the truth that threatens to undo it. Just as citizens trusted leaders who lied to them because they longed for stability, lovers trust words that may not be genuine, because they long for safety in someone else's heart. This is the same dynamic that Machiavelli observed in politics. Entire kingdoms were held together not by truth, but by illusion. A ruler's power often depended less on his deeds and more on his ability to weave a believable story. People need the comfort of belief more than they want the discomfort of truth. And in love, this need is even sharper. Because love speaks not only to survival, but also to our longing for transcendence, belonging, and purpose. So the question is not whether "I love you" can be used strategically. Of course it can. The deeper question is whether we, as hearers, can tell the difference between words that come from the depths of sincerity and words that are crafted with precision, like tools of influence. And the uncomfortable reality is that often we cannot. Our longing blinds us. Our desire makes us pliable. The very thing that makes love beautiful, its vulnerability, is also what makes it dangerous. We live in the tension of this paradox. The phrase can be authentic, flowing from the soul without calculation, or it can be entirely tactical, designed to secure devotion, loyalty, or forgiveness. and both versions sound the same. The melody of the words does not betray the intention behind them. This is why Machiavelli's insights feel so unsettling when applied to love. They strip away our illusions and reveal that even the most intimate declarations can be shaped by strategy. So what lesson does Machiavelli leave us with here? That even in the tenderest spaces of life, the game of power does not vanish. Love, which we often imagine as pure and untouched by calculation, is not immune to strategy. It is not separate from the dynamics of influence. It is one of the arenas where those dynamics are most potent. Love can be authentic, but it can also be manipulative. It can bind two souls together in genuine union, or it can bind one person to another in chains of carefully chosen words. The phrase "I love you" might flow from the depths of someone's soul, or it might be placed carefully like a chess move designed to reshape the board. A ruler who declares peace may secretly prepare for war. A lover who swears devotion may secretly prepare for departure. The words themselves do not guarantee the truth behind them. And perhaps this is the unsettling truth Machiavelli forces us to confront in politics. In love, in every realm of human connection, strategy is never absent. Where there is vulnerability, there is also the potential for manipulation. Where there is faith, there is also the temptation to exploit it. And those three little words, so small, so soft. So sweet, can carry more power than armies, more sway than gold, more influence than decrease. To recognize this is not to abandon love, just as recognizing deceit in politics does not mean abandoning hope for justice. It means becoming wiser, more discerning, less willing to take words at face value. It means looking not only at what is said, but also at what is done. It means remembering that the truth of love is revealed not in declarations, but in consistent action. And yet, even with this knowledge, the paradox remains. For no matter how cautious we become, no matter how much we learn to guard ourselves, part of us will always long to hear those words, to believe them, to surrender to them. That is the power Machiavelli understood so well, that human beings are not merely rational actors, say, or dreamers, believers and lovers. And it is precisely in that longing, in that hunger for meaning, that the true battlefield of love and power lies.